memories amongst the things that he cherished. All of you know Ken in one capacity or other. You have all had some aspects of his life, but probably not known Ken as a whole person and all the things that he encompasses. So what this is all about is that I'm hoping that you will share memories, share some thoughts with each other. And I have spent the last 2 months collecting things and putting together a portfolio and photographs and frame some of Ken's artwork that I'm hoping that you will just wander through and enjoy looking at. So thank you very much. My son-in-law, my dear son-in-law, is going to talk about Ken and his life. I also like to, before we start doing that, to thank the group that is playing here, Connie, Jane and Barbara, for coming and playing here with us today. It was very much part of Ken's life and he loved that group. Thank you.
I have some notes because Ruth said I shouldn't go much above 2 hours. So she also stole my opening remarks, which is that many of you will have known Ken in many capacities, either as friends or colleagues, or fellow tennis players, or family members, or any of the above. And so naturally you'll all have your own narratives. And I chose for the particular narrative today to talk about something which Ken and I both had interest in common, which broadly would be in arts and design, in which I think Ken excelled during the course of his life. So I'd just like to confine my remarks to those things. I met Ken about 25 years ago when Irene first brought me to the house here, and one of the striking features in the house was the obvious interest in the design that the contents of the house reflected. And clearly many of the articles in the house were there because of Ken and Ruth's interest in Scandinavian design, but there were also things in the house which were unique, of unknown provenance, and it turned out these things had been made by Ken, and that's what really got my attention at that time. And over time it became obvious to me that Ken was an artist, and in fact he was one of the few artists I think around with an aesthetic vision who could also do the math, because Ken of course was also a professional engineer, and I think this combination of his artistic vision and his ability to sort of deal with detail was particularly important to what he did. His abiding interest in the design and manufacture of objects of beauty, as well as utility, which of course is what design is about, was manifested by his decision to take time out from his career from the years 1976 to 78 to pursue a Masters of Fine Arts degree at the Cranbrook Academy in Michigan. And the Cranbrook Academy in Michigan is extremely hard to get into. It's a very, very highly esteemed program, and so I admire him for even considering that, but that's what he did. And when you go through the house, I think just in the room here, you'll find his thesis, which was part of the work for his Masters of Fine Arts at that institution. In fact, there are lots of examples of Ken's work on display today. They include the beautiful metal pots, which you can see in the front room. There's some extraordinary jewellery. I'm not stealing this, but I have some in my pocket, which I'll talk about briefly in a moment. And some amazing cloisonné work, which some bigger examples are in the on display today, which I hope you'll take a look at. But this is a very small, delicate and fabulous example of an extremely skilled piece of work. I talked to Ken about this several years ago, and he was explaining to me how this is done. Cloisonné essentially is an ancient metalworking technique, and it's a multi-step process in which metal dividers are created in a piece of metal either by carving it or by putting in metal spaces by soldering, and then you fill the space between the dividers with vitreous enamel, and then you fire it and then you polish it. So you have this wonderful, it ends up with this beautiful separation of the various colors of the enamel, separated by pieces of very fine metal, and Ken was extremely good at that. And again, that's a very ancient technique, and again the way in which Ken made his rings and his jewelry and various other again practical but decorative objects like this was a very ancient technique where you take sheet metal like sterling silver or copper, and you beat it with a hammer over forms of varying sizes until you get to the final dimensions before you start polishing. And I think that it's interesting that though Ken was very interested in using traditional artistic techniques to create contemporary designs, he also embraced technology in all of its senses, and in the past few years he was using the computer to manipulate forms and colours to generate some very striking images. And again, you'll find quite a few of these on display if you look in the office near the front room and around there, and this is well worth looking at. On a larger scale, Ken left a much larger legacy in the greater community in his capacity as a civil engineer. And many of you from the area here will be familiar with the Vidal Street pedestrian bridge, the overpass on the 401 at Front Street, the Cow Creek Bridge in Brightsgrove, and the Sydenham River Bridge in the township of Songborough. These bridges and many others were all designed by Ken. Ken also designed the St. Clair River erosion control wall in Corunna and the shoreline protection in Brightsgrove. And in his avocation as an architect, Ken never trained as an architect, but as a civil engineer and an artist, he certainly had his hand into this. And often in collaboration with Ian Rutherford, Ken designed several buildings which you may be familiar with in the local area. And I know what they are, but I have to have the envelope. Including the squash courts at the Sarnia Riding Club, the Coronation Park Day Nursery, and of course the renovations that you see in this house itself. Ken also had a passion for music. He had a very Catholic taste ranging from classical to jazz to blues, and he was an enthusiastic player. He owned and learned a variety of instruments, shall we say, a large number of instruments, that he practiced diligently, fully encouraged, at least usually, by Ruth, except I do remember the day that he brought home the saxophone, and I think that was the day that we drew the line in the sand. Ken also enjoyed performing. He was of course a member of the recorder ensemble that you've heard this afternoon. Thank you very much. Nice ensemble. And he was also a willing volunteer in the house band at Will and Jean's annual carol sing. And so to finish on a musical note, and in celebration of Ken's highly productive and interesting life, my friend Willie Taylor here and I are going to sing a song that Ken heard many times during his life. Which one's it going to be, Will?
Time passes over.
Sounds good to me.
Time passes over more cheerful and gay, since we've learned a new act to drive sorrows away. Sorrows away, sorrows away, sorrows away. Since we've learned a new act to drive sorrows away. Bright Phoebus awakes high up in the sky, with her red rosy cheeks and her sparkling eye. Sparkling eyes, sparkling eyes, sparkling eyes, with her red rosy cheeks and her sparkling eyes. If you ask for my credit, you'll find I have none. With me bottle and friends, you will find me at home. Find me at home. Find me at home. Find me at home. With me bottle and friends, you will find me at home. Although I'm not rich and although I'm not poor, I'm as happy as those that's got thousands or more. Thousands or more. Thousands or more. Thousands or more. I'm as happy as those that's got thousands or more.
This one-